Welcome back to Not My Monk Life. I am Ayesha.
And I'm Skye. It's nice to see you, or for you to see us.
This week we are going to do a little continuation of a topic we talked about, I think, a couple episodes ago, and that is on the topic of beauty, because there's a lot to say on that, and I feel like we didn't hit everything. But I wanted to start with one thing that's been on my mind, and it stems from when I was reflecting on any type of performance where you have to have a sense of privacy within the public eye. And there's this extent of self-absorption that you have to have in order to really be present and in a scene or in the dance or just a part of everything. There is this layer of being immersed and, to be poetic, intoxicated with your own self and what you have to offer in that beauty and that experience of yourself. I was just wondering if there are any initial thoughts or anything that sparks when you think of the idea of having to be self-absorbed, not like in a narcissistic way, but in a presence with yourself kind of way, and how that relates to an understanding of beauty, both physical, like external and internal.
I do think that it's kind of rebellious to allow yourself that sense of self absorption when it comes to beauty because I don't know, it's one of those things that we touched on this before of you're not really encouraged to think that you yourself are beautiful. You're supposed to kind of look for your validity through the eyes of others, specifically like if you're a young girl, guys. Like, oh, guys can tell me that I'm beautiful and that's where I root my self-confidence in, but walking around and thinking that I'm beautiful is something that is actually meant to be kind of like broken down. It's funny because the thing that's popping up in my mind right now is Cassie. I don't know if you've ever watched Euphoria, but have you seen Euphoria?
Bits and pieces. I haven't ever actually seen a full episode. I thought you were talking about Cassie, like Cassie.
Oh, I'm talking about Cassie. I feel like I'm gonna get canceled for bringing her up. No, the other Cassie. Um, the Cassie from Euphoria. Euphoria is just this show. It's like it has Zendaya in it and Sam Levinson and all these people. Or Sam Levinson's the director, and it's like this show about high schoolers and intensities of like sex, drugs, and basically rock and roll. And there's a character called Cassie, and her whole storyline is that like she was really attractive as a kid, and not that's crazy. Scratch that. She was pretty. She was a pretty kid. And by being a pretty kid, like 10, 12, her dad's friends were like, they sexualized her. And then she goes into like middle school and high school, and the people around her are sexualizing her. And kind of her relationship with being overly sexualized at like a really young age. And it's this weird thing where like you look back at that person and you're kind of we talked about this before, like you're kind of taught to hate the like prettiest girl in school as a girl, like oh she's your competition, and then the men low-key try and like humble you, especially now as like grown adults in the real world. Like if you think that you are an attractive woman, there's a whole realm of like men on the internet who will try to humble you. Why? I don't know. That's for them to figure out with their therapist, hopefully. But it's this thing where it's like it's supposed to be a lot more normal to be insecure no matter how socially acceptable your beauty is. You could be like Victoria's Secret model level, whatever, but it's more socially acceptable for you to be insecure. And the minute that you embrace like people like my face and people like my body, so there's no reason to walk around here insecure about it, then it's like, oh, she's the enemy now. She's this, she's that. But that in itself isn't even feeling beautiful. Accepting that people desire you isn't how you feel beautiful at all.
One thing I've been considering is okay, you have to be discerning or perceive to some extent your beauty and attractiveness or your how sexual of a being you are through another person's gaze. Even if you don't see it, I think there is a point within myself where I realize, okay, it's ignorant and naive for me to walk down the street and pretend like I'm not getting looked at in certain ways in certain contexts. Do I agree with how I'm getting perceived? No. Do I feel like I should have to monitor how I dress or control how I interact with people? No. But simultaneously, to what extent do I need to do that in order to be aware and discerning? Just because you're being discerning or perceiving yourself in a certain way doesn't mean you're like, I'm the most gorgeous person ever. It's just awareness. And I think sometimes that sense of awareness and embodying and embracing an awareness that you have to have can be confused with being narcissistic or having an ego associated with it. Because I know in the past, it's like when it comes to guy friends, for example, it's like, he would like me? No. No, men don't like women at all. Possible. He's my friend. He knows me better than anybody else and sees all the good sides of me. How would he like me?
The exception.
Even if it's like, I feel like we're bros. I don't get it. There's still a level of having to perceive myself or see myself and acknowledge how I can be seen through someone else's lens in order to be smart and in order to walk the way I want to walk. Because I think part of embodying who you are and part of authenticity is also being aware of what is inauthentic around you and navigating how to best show up as yourself and how to best like how that can be received if that's your goal for your true self to be received and perceived.
What's so interesting is that recently I've been getting really good at disengaging from everyone. Like I feel like I've always been good at like putting my head down and pushing through the world and being like, I can't see anything, I can't hear anything, I have my headphones on. But something has clicked where I'm walking around and I like will see people looking at me like and wanting to engage with my energy and completely just kind of like look away and like be completely disengaged from it. So no part of me even wants to people please of being like smile and nod. Like I don't want to do any of it. I just like see them for some reason, turn their head and look at me in the eyes, and I go and keep going. And I've been concerned that I'm like, am I being mean? Is this mean? And I had a dream about it because I did that to someone in a dream and they're trying to talk to me and I was walking away and they were like so hurt. And I was just like, hey, I'm like, I had to track them down and be like, hey, was that mean? And they're kind of just like, oh no, da, da, da. Like they had to work through their feelings in my dream. So it wasn't real. But yeah, it's interesting because that's been happening, but at the same time, like if I'm at a coffee shop and this man checking me out from the like checking me out at the front desk is just like making a lot of eye contact and seems really happy to be talking to me because it's a girl that he finds pretty and that really makes a man's day. I don't mind. Like I'm like, "Hi. Yeah, okay. Have a great day." Like I'm not being rude to him, but for the randos on the street that I like have no there's no reason for me to interact with you, I've been so disengaged. And I've genuinely been like intrusive thoughts. Is this rude? Is this wrong of me? But also, what's the other side? I give everyone my attention all the time when I'm just trying to what, go on a jog? I'm just trying to go on a jog. So, or carry my groceries home. So I don't know. I don't think that it is rude to do, but it is something that's been on my mind of like, it just feels different and it feels like a boundary that maybe wasn't there before. And that's a little jarring for even like me to live in my body while that's happening.
Yeah, and when you can feel people looking at you, it's hard to just disengage sometimes. Not saying it's hard to not have a 45-minute conversation, but it's hard to, just keep it pushing, keep it moving. But at the same time, I've been practicing that of okay, I don't have to acknowledge every single person I pass by. And we've talked about this before, but I live in New York. You pass by a lot of people. That's draining to get to the end of the block if you're making eye contact and acknowledging every person. And it is hard for me to not acknowledge every single soul that I pass. But also, I realize that interacting and engaging every person that passes can also be taxing to where the people that you're meant to speak to or the people that your intuition is like no you need to interact with this person, like this is the person you need to interact with this today. It can block that because you're so taxed out from your own sense of intuition.
I love
And
that.
yeah, this is
Snaps and
honestly
claps for that.
I this is a new practice and I just put it into words. How many seconds ago did I start that thought? 5 seconds ago. But I think that sense of putting a boundary up and not feeling bad. This goes for any boundary, and working through the guilt of asserting a boundary is hard. That's next episode of boundaries. No, but at some point we need to talk about that because one thing I think about is going off of beauty. I mentioned this in like the last episode that we talked about beauty, but going from a place where white, blue eyes, blonde hair was the beauty standard. I don't have that. So it wasn't like I was considered beautiful in that area or part of what the expectation was for you to be considered, like, here. And then moving to a place that had more diversity and getting all this attention all of a sudden was really jarring. And I remember my freshman year of high school, I ended up apologizing to the first person who I gave my number to ever. Because I didn't know how to say no, but I wasn't interested, and then he was being really sexual, and I asserted a boundary and was like, no, no, stop. Side note: whenever people would send me pictures of inappropriate photos or videos, I would send them a picture of an STD off of Google because I didn't know what else to do. 18-year-old me had these like weird ways of asserting boundaries where I was like, here's gonorrhea on a penis. Um,
This is a health class. You're a walking health class. Here's gonorrhea. Look at it.
Here's how to assert boundaries when you don't know how. No, there are better ways. We will get to them. I was 14 years old. But that aside, that was a random tangent because
Rough though, because you had to see gonorrhea too.
I'm
Everyone
so
had to look at
numb.
it.
I'm so numb from sexually transmitted infections.
Wait, wait. Side moment to recognize the fact that in health class, I've been explaining health class to my parents as an adult. Like this is what we experienced. I'm like, one, they had to sign an abstinence contract. Everyone in the school had to sign a contract saying that you wouldn't have sex until you were married. And if you were like the one girl in class who didn't do it, everyone thought that you were actually a whore. Like it was terrible. And then the only thing that you learned about sex was if you do it and you get an STD, here's what they look like. And you just looked at slideshows of STDs, and that was health class.
No,
It
go into
wasn't there.
the Bible Belt. Sign
Literally,
because God hates you. Instead of, if this happens, this is like, precaution, birth control. Instead of all
none.
that, let's make sure that you know how to deal with coercion. Nothing like that.
No, not a single banana. Not even a banana in a condom. You didn't get whatever you saw on TV. Whatever you saw on
No.
Mean Girls with the bananas. You didn't even get that. All you got was this is herpes. And also on a random day, your health class, when your health teacher's feeling like really like whatever, she'll show you a 7 minute long video of someone giving birth straight from like the angle of the vagina. It was weird though. Like my memory is that she like had it on her iPad and had like the kids all surround her and they all watched it on the iPad together or something. That's kind of creepy.
That's very intimate. That
It was
gives like
very weird. It was like they were giving birth.
yeah. Back to boundaries. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember this guy that I asserted a boundary with, and I felt so bad because I wasn't sure if I did the right thing or did it right. When it came to boundaries and asserting boundaries, I think my idea of crossing the line or saying things that were uncalled for were so aggressive and violent that I realized, okay, he hasn't done anything physical or harmed me physically or anything like that. So if I assert a boundary or it's like, okay, I don't want to be engaging you looking at me like this, or I'm not interested in this way. I felt so bad that I went up to him and apologized. And I was like, hey, I don't know if I sounded like a total bitch when I said this, but I'm really, really, really sorry. And he was so confused. He
I
was
did the
so
same
confused. He
thing.
was like, it's fine. But then moving forward, growing up, where you assert a boundary and people are just so offended because they recognize your beauty and you're like, no, I don't want to engage. And they're like, but I said you were pretty. Now you're ugly. Bye. We talked about that too. But you said you've done the same thing.
Yeah, I've also had to set boundaries with someone who was criminal, like criminal. And then I felt bad because he was so angry. Like he was so angry at me for having set boundaries with him. It was someone who was just kind of like, I told him to leave me alone and he would not. And I was like, my dog died. And I was just like, bro, I told you politely to leave me alone. I'm going to tell you now very clearly, leave me alone. I don't have the capacity, leave me alone. I didn't like him like that. I want him to leave me alone. And the next time I saw him in person, he was so angry at me. And so to be honest, I don't know. I don't think I was afraid that I hurt his feelings. I was actually like scared. The way that he looked at me had so much what I felt like was hatred. And, you know, however that panned out, probably was a little bit of hatred, honestly, which is so unfortunate. And re entering that person's life because of this fear of having someone be upset with me caused more pain to me, which is really, really unfortunate. And it was a huge learning lesson, but also that's one of those lessons that it hurts, like it messes you up, and it kind of makes you more concerned about people's feelings and more concerned about people being mad at you. And it's more so like the instinct goes, okay, I didn't handle that person's anger properly. I need to coddle men more? No, that's not true. But it's a scary situation to have, for me at least, a man be mad at me. Like it was very scary at the time. Um, yeah, ever look over and it's like a group of men just staring you down, it's terrifying, especially when you're like a teenager. And that's so wild because it's like, why is it so scary as a woman to establish boundaries? Because with the girls, it's fine. You establish boundaries with a girl and it's okay, but like, it's one, is it really hard as a woman to establish boundaries? And two, what is it like for a man to receive boundaries? Because I think that's something that they're also less used to as well, so their reaction is more palpable, and that whole process can be very not just uncomfortable, but also just like underdeveloped. Like, why is it being handled in this specific way?
Yeah, oh my God, that makes me think of so many things. This is just generalizing from my experience. But I'm thinking of the people who don't get that offended on the street, for example, if they're catcalling you and they're like, "You're so whatever, whatever," and it's just this like, what is this comment? I think it's supposed to be a compliment, but it's so aggressive and it's what is this? Um, but there are those compliments, or well, no, there are those comments that are rejected and men just like move on. And then there are other people who say stuff and they're so mad because I think too there's that validation, and going back to just this idea of beauty, and it's easy for people, especially if you grow up attractive and all you hear is validation about your looks and stuff, it might be hard to feel that sense of rejection. Attaching your identity and your sense of beauty off of how many compliments you get or how many girls you pull or how many guys you pull or how many whatever, and then having that, experiencing that sense of rejection. How do I word this? So everybody is beautiful, right? Some people I'm just not attracted to at all. Some people I'm like, I you
You
okay,
make sense for someone. Someone could be
let me
attracted
word
to
it like
you.
this. When you're underage and there is a grown adult man that says something to you, that's very disgusting and disturbing, right? And there's that sense in me that was always thinking, okay, the audacity. You wanted to say that to me? I look like this, you look like that. Like I'm 14, you're however old you are, I don't understand. And I asked, what is the psychology behind some people who are just not in the same? It just doesn't make sense as to why you would be saying this to this person. And the way he explained it was he was just like, if you're used to getting rejected all the time, you don't mind shooting your shot that much. And so it doesn't hurt that much. If you're used to getting rejected, you're just gonna shoot your shot. And then it's like if you get a response, that's kind of a win. If you don't, it's whatever. But I don't know what my point is with any of this. I was just thinking about this sense of forming and having this validation off of other people's comments or engagement with you, and how that really can distort your own perception of beauty, especially when you do get negative feedback or you get no feedback, or sometimes people just don't hear you.
Bringing us from boundaries back to the topic of beauty. I feel like I've noticed this one thing where when society decides that you are beautiful, you're like not allowed to have boundaries anymore. You kind of belong to society now. Like the whole thing with the catcalling, if you want to catcall you, we're gonna catcall you. If I want to grab you, I'm gonna grab you. If I want to talk to you a certain way, I'm gonna talk to you a certain way. If everyone, me, my uncle, my grandfather, and my grandson want to hit on you, we're gonna hit on you because we've decided that you are an object of our desire. And now it's just kind of something that you have to deal with. And even that whole mean girl of it all, where it's like you're not really allowed to talk about the fact that you're pissed off that every boy in school has a crush on you. You're not allowed to talk about that because then it makes you a brat. But realistically, you're getting inappropriate pictures, getting inappropriate comments at a very young age. You're getting people whispering about you, trying to grab you, trying to do these stares about you, all this random stuff, like really crazy things, because you've decided that you're beautiful, which then makes you an object in society's eyes. I think that's something that's like one of those weird topics that you can't really talk about it, and even I think attractive men experience the exact same thing. And it's almost like even less so they can speak out against it of like if you're a young attractive man, now we're all just gonna like touch you, like we're all just gonna touch your arm and your chest and talk about you and talk about how good looking you are and try and lift up your shirt and all this random stuff. I find both of those situations very disturbing, and it's one of those things where it's like at what point are you allowed to speak out about it, because it's almost like you're seen as ungrateful because everyone's decided that you are attractive, but then you're not allowed to be a person anymore.
I used to think about this a little bit more often because I think I experienced situations so back to back, and talking about it felt like one, the ungrateful thing definitely did pop up, but there's also this sense of powerlessness that both I felt and that I feel or I felt projected onto me of, okay, you're letting this happen, or why are you even saying, like, what is the goal of saying this? I know it happens a lot less because one, I know how to carry myself and I know how to assert boundaries, but it still happens. Like, you still get glances, you still get people who are a little touchy feely, you still get comments. But also, I don't be going out like outside, period. So
Yeah.
that also helps. um, but having to have the conversations and realize that it's not as simple as bringing this up and trying to have these conversations doesn't mean women are trying to fish for a sense of validation in, like, yeah, no, look how much attention I get. Sometimes it can be that, and we will at some point touch on that in either this episode or a future episode. But there's a deeper conversation to cope with a lot of inappropriate comments, to cope with glances, to cope with just the feeling and the cloudiness of it all. Hang on, Skye, I don't like this point. I feel like I might get canceled if I continue down this route. Okay, I'm gonna be honest and say that I'm struggling to finish this point because I feel a little hesitant because a part of me knows that there's always a way out of situations and how to handle situations, but then a part of me also knows that the experience of growing up as a woman who gets attention or just the experience of being out here, it's a learning thing. If you're experiencing this since you were little, you normalize comments if that's the constant, right? And the older you get, the more you realize, okay, this isn't normal behavior. The same way that it's not normal behavior to sexualize every part of someone and being okay with doing that, it's not normal behavior to feel like you have to be the subject or the object of all of that. And I'm struggling a little bit to speak on this because I feel like if I say that it is normal and it's hard to have these conversations, then that indicates that there's a powerlessness associated with it, or you're falling victim, or you're like too weak, or you're trying to get attention from the amount of attention that you get and engagement. But it's not that conversation. It's the fact that we have to go on this journey of learning what beauty looks like, and we have to go on this journey of understanding what positive attention really looks like for ourselves. It's not taught to us because we have to go on that journey within a structure and a system that is so demeaning, that is so opposite of supporting this journey for us. So when you're trying to go down that route of finding beauty for yourself, when you're trying to go down the route of finding boundaries for yourself, but you're constantly being fed what to believe, and they're two different conversations. Men acknowledging you or men telling you you're beautiful in all these ways that are both appropriate and inappropriate, and then having the conversation of, okay, that girl thinks she's really pretty, so like don't, that's like she's full of herself. And those two different extremes, and again, like I know I'm generalizing, but I'm just, my point with all this is that we're fed two very different conversations, and neither of those are really supportive of helping us find our own sense of self and being able to engage and interact and challenge the viewpoints of others on the street. Because to embody ourselves, to be a person who doesn't tolerate it, it might be stepping away from a sense of kindness and into this territory of you being labeled as a bitch or as someone who is just really rude and ungrateful. And then if you do take it, or if you do interact, or if someone calls you beautiful and you're like, thank you, then you might be leading someone on and you might be taking it in. And like there are all these caveats, and it's just difficult to find your own way and spark this own conversation with yourself on what beauty is when you're not given the space to do that. So my point with all this is I'm struggling to say all these words and really respond to that because I'm honestly scared of how it'll be taken and the context that it'll be taken in, because I know there are loopholes and I know there are ways out of feeling things that aren't empowered and strong and kind and like all of these things. But like, it's hard. It's hard out here. And that is my honest answer.
I feel like I want to touch on what you were saying early on about like the different experiences of women in these situations, because I think about like certain friends I have. Like I feel like I have a friend who would rather bark at a man who catcalls her before she acknowledges his existence in a positive way, right? Like her instinct is, I will probably bark at you, quite literally. And then I have other people where it's like, but like the same person might not be able to navigate in a club scene very well and be able to get away from attention that way, or be able to figure out what's happening in that situation. Whereas like I'm more like appeasing maybe on the street of like, here's a nod and a smile, but then at the club I know how to like finagle my way away. All of this to say that the way that we experience attention from others isn't a commentary on attractiveness or on beauty or on anything like that. It's more so a commentary on what you're comfortable with and how you've been socialized as a young woman. Like, have you been taught that's really important to put other people's feelings above your own? Okay, well, here's your journey. Were you taught to drop kick a man at a moment's notice? Okay, here's your journey. And so we've all placed men in a certain category, women in a certain category, ourselves in a certain category, safety in a certain category. Here's where you feel, someone might want to like walk the streets at 10 p.m. and they're like, la di da di da. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that a man tried to pull me into his car. Whereas like other people are like, no, like I know these streets. I know the streets. I know how to like keep my head on a swivel. I know how to like hold myself here. But put me over there, I don't know what I'm doing. It's one of those things where with situations like this, where everyone's being objectified, it's not about who's being objectified more often or more frequently. It's not about who lives in downtown and has to deal with it every single day and who lives in the suburbs and deals with it a couple times a month. It's not this one's worse and that one's better. It's literally just a situation where can everyone share their experiences and then work together to help each other find some sort of a solution. Whether it's how to be brave, or how to speak up for ourselves, or how to hold boundaries, how to hold our energy, how to look out for each other. It's not a competition of whose experience is worse. And that's something that needs to kind of be removed. That's one of those things I feel like it's put onto us sometimes, this competition, so that we look at each other and we find each other as the enemy first, versus like, no, let's talk about the people who are making us uncomfortable. Let's please work together for that one and realize that no one's asking for an enemy out of this. You're just in a different life situation. You're just in a different life scenario. That's literally it. Like, that is all. And so, what can we do to come together and be able to air out our grievances without coming at each other's throats? And then still be able to be like, okay, now we feel more confident, we feel safer, we feel stronger. Or at least we know that if we look at this other girl that's in the room, she'll get it. And it'll be okay. We have someone on our side, even though this situation is uncomfortable and it's happening.
Yes, Skye. That was so well said. That's gonna be the clip. No, it's not a woe is me competition. And there is a space and there is a necessity to feel a sense of grief and sadness for the way that things happen and unfold and operate. And it's okay to be upset that something happened and that you didn't know how to handle it. And something happened that was just out of your realm of experience or it woke you up a little bit. There's a grief anytime there's a sense of change, and changing your reality or waking up to reality is going to open up that sense of, ooh, and it might be shame, it might be guilt, it might be whatever, but having to sit with that emotion of, okay, that happened. I didn't expect that to happen. Or just sitting with that was very uncomfortable. And I was prepared for it or I wasn't prepared for it. Whatever it is, don't regret it. Don't dwell. There's no need to integrate something that was uncomfortable as part of your norm and as part of a reality that you glorify or make it to be a competition or anything like that. Going back to that sense of beauty and the idea of physical beauty, there's a level of negative tension that I associated with physical appearance, and I internalized that as, okay, this is my fault or this is on me, that sense of responsibility. And with a sense of responsibility, when it comes to beauty, you're responsible for other people's perceptions. I realized that there wasn't really a space to sit with, okay, but what is beauty for me? And what does it mean to handle myself in a way that still acknowledges my own perception of myself and still sets boundaries with other people's perceptions of me?
It's really big. It's like as simple as I need to wear longer skirts. Do I need to wear long sleeve shirts? Does it even matter? Should I wear a double XL t-shirt? Does it even matter? Do I need to wear jeans all the time? Does it even matter? It doesn't matter. I think that's kind of like where we eventually land as women, is it really doesn't matter what you're wearing. It matters that you're prepared to be seen. And so I think that's one of those things where, like, when girls dress for the girls, the gays and the theys. It's bright, it's colorful, it's got the thing, it's got the yitties out, it's got everything out. But there's like a different way that you're walking out the door when you know who you're dressing for. It's just kind of being like, this isn't for guys. And it brings a sense of safety. That doesn't change the world, it doesn't change society, it doesn't change the male gaze. It doesn't mean they're not gonna look at you, it doesn't mean they're not gonna catcall you. But it lets you walk out the door with a sense of empowerment. But like, you know what you're walking into, you know why you're doing what you're doing. And they can't tell you otherwise, and they don't have a right to you or your body. And that's huge.
Knowing what you're walking into allows for that stability to give yourself permission sometimes to be confident, to take ownership of your beauty and your relationship with your beauty. But when you walk outside or you're in situations where you don't know how that's going to be taken, or you assume you're going to not know how that's going to be taken, it can be difficult to stand in what you want to stand in that space of beauty that you want to define for yourself. We had so many points in this episode that I think would be appropriate to expand on in their own ways.
I think so too. I think also the topic we like started with saying that it was about beauty. I think it very immediately became about beauty and boundaries and how those associate with each other. I don't think this is our feeling beautiful episode. I don't think we touched on feeling beautiful once this episode. We're having slight technical difficulties, which we promise we're going to work on figuring out. But thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you so much. If you haven't checked out our older episodes, please do. We have on things on pretty privilege, which kind of relates to this conversation. We have conversations around workplace boundaries. We have conversations around being authentic in a world where they don't really ask that of you. And we have all sorts of stuff. Somehow my lamp got into the visual of this. Well, you know what? It's in there now, so we're all just going to deal with it. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are Not My Monk Life, the podcast. We are Not My Monk Life on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So check us out everywhere. We love you. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you so much for being on this journey with us, and we hope that you gain something from this conversation the same way that we usually do from talking with each other. But thank you so much. Have a great day. It was great to see you, for you to see us. Later.